Greetings watchers one and all, the Watchful One here, and welcome to a new miniseries I'm doing called WTHI, or What the Hell Is. This series is just basically an excuse for me to talk about any weird and unusual thing I may stumble across. And oh boy, we're starting off with an interesting one for episode 1. But before I begin, I have a question for all of you. How many weebs are in the audience right now? Yeah, there you are. Yeah, I see you all. You stay classy. Well, if you are a weeb, or possibly even a 90s kid, I'm sure you've heard of Power Rangers. Yeah, that little show about a bunch of high schoolers that save the day using their giant mech suits. And if you've done enough digging in your older years around Power Rangers, you probably figured out that Power Rangers was actually based off a Japanese TV show. A TV show called Super Sentai, which, yes, made it one part Saved by the Bell and one part anime dub. And they would recycle footage from Super Sentai, with audio from the American actors. Well, what if I told you that there was a show out there that did to Japanese game shows what Power Rangers did to Super Sentai shows? What's that? That sounds like a blast? Well, I got good news for you. It was a thing. It was released back in 2003 and it was called MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. Yeah, I don't know what the I is either. I'm pretty sure he wanted a raise. Greedy bastard. But yeah, well, that's not the basic premise of the show. It is the basic setup of the show, taking footage of a Japanese game show and dubbing it over. And honestly, that and the show itself are the most interesting parts because, I mean, it's at this point I would talk about the history of the show, but there's really not a lot to talk about. This is the definition of a show that just came right the fuck out of nowhere. I don't know, maybe I'll just plead ignorance on this, or maybe it's just because there isn't a lot of research on it being a relatively unknown show. This is definitely a case of the final product way overshadowing its production. Because, oh boy, where do I even start with this show? Well, I guess by starting with that the footage was all taken from Tekeshies Castle. And yes, if Takeshi sounds familiar, then congratulations, you're a big JonTron fan. JonTron was not kidding, Takeshi is a big name in Japan, he even had his own game show apparently. And like most Japanese game shows like say Ninja Warrior, it got a reputation of being ball-bustingly difficult. I'm sure in some cases that was quite literal. See, each competition would apparently have around 100 contestants playing, give or take mind you, some of them were more, some of them were less. And there were 113 episodes of Tekeshies Castle. Do you want to know how many people actually won? 8. Not 18, not 8E, 8. Now my math might be wrong on this, but if we round it up to 100, that's 11,300 contestants throughout the show's run. That means you had a 1 in 1,412.5 chance of actually winning. I mean, Jesus Christ, you might as well buy a lottery ticket the same day. And as if that wasn't enough, apparently a lot of people got fucked up during this show. Now take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt because these were all on the website and the stats can be kinda dubious possibly. But do you wanna know all the injuries that people sustained in Tekeshies Castle? 41 broken ribs, 19 broken jaws, 312 bruised chins, 282 bruised shins, 9 full-on knockouts, 35 concussions, 276 people became winded, 2 fractured skulls, 112 black eyes, 62 torn muscles.
Fractured ass.
Yeah, for good measure, let's say there was probably a fractured ass somewhere in there. And again, none of these stats are official, but come on, watch one episode of MXC and tell me someone didn't break something. And heck, the story of Tekeshies Castle was basically all these people were storming the castle of Takeshi himself. And yeah, if I had a sweet-ass Japanese castle like that, I wouldn't make it easy either. I'd create crazy and elaborate obstacle courses that are meant to symbolically show them storming the castle and actually getting to it like they're heroes. If nothing else, it'll make a nice movie night. But despite the crazy setup of the original show, MXC takes a completely different approach to it. And obviously they kinda had to because they didn't have the rights to every single clip. Workarounds were needed like re-showing some of the challenges. Heck, they basically completely changed the format altogether for MXC. If the original was a hero's journey meets game show, then MXC is basically a Saturday night football game. I'm not even joking, it's literally just 2 teams going against each other. And of course the comedy being that these are just normal ass blue collar jobs, concepts and all that stuff, going head to head to see who's better. Like, the fact that cartoon voice actors and the meat industry can actually go head to head in a competition like this, it's so petty and arbitrary I could totally buy it's an American thing. Heck, even the characters are completely different. The original had Takeshi and his underling and his army of minions, but this one is just Kenny Blankenship and Vic Romano being hosts that are extremely wacky and crazy, with Vic Romano being the straight man to Kenny Blankenship, who's literally just a crazy person. And hey, it works because these two having a back and forth is easily some of the best parts of the episode. I can listen to these two bicker like they're a married couple all friggin' day, it's hilarious. I'd say most of the recurring characters are pretty damn funny, like Gay LeDouche. Yes, I actually said that. And no, despite how it's spelled, I'm not mispronouncing it either. Just being this weird, perverted little gremlin who's a news reporter. And of course, we can't forget the captain, who, while is very funny, is mostly known for his catchphrases.
Show of hands, now! Well, you're wrong. Get it on! Let's go!
What does it say that I can still quote these catchphrases, like, years after the show's ended? And while showing that, I suppose the other thing I could compliment this show on is, and this is gonna sound really weird, but the dubbing is actually pretty excellent. Like seriously, MXC used none of the audio from the original show. It's all original audio. And I would kill to know how many hours these guys had to watch in order to match up the dialogue this well to the motions. No matter what's happening, the lip movements may be so-and-so in occasions, but for the most part, the movements and the actions are almost spot on to what's actually being said. Like, is it sad that Spike TV was doing better dubs of live action stuff than most animes were getting at the time? But I suppose all of this is skirting around the main and proper reason why this is so fondly remembered, and it's summed up in one word: Schadenfreude. Like, the highlights have and always will be these characters just getting fucked up. Seriously, it'll never not be funny to see these guys just get destroyed by these challenges. This kind of humor was all over the place around the early 2000s, like look at Jackass. But what really sells it is honest to God the commentary. Sure, seeing these people get destroyed is funny in its own right, but then when you add in Kenny and Vic's dialogue, along with the dialogue of the actual players, yeah, you get something beautiful. And then when you just combine it with the surrealness of this being a Japanese game show, along with the craziness that already entails, it goes from just beautiful to a masterpiece. I mean, where else are you going to see dubbing like this, and competitions where people have to run over rocks without falling into septic sludge, or the rotating surfboard of death with these crazy dolphins, or a personal favorite of mine and everyone else's, log rollers? Where else are you going to see all this, plus mundane people going head to head to decide who is truly better? And I mean real competition, not the Bears versus the Browns. I'm talking dairy workers versus automotive workers. I'm talking the wedding industry versus the trucking industry. I'm talking Greeks versus geeks, with the team captains being Tony Hawk and Terry Takadias. And yes, that was an actual episode, look it up. So ultimately, what the hell is MXC? It is a hilarious relic of the past that I seriously think deserves more attention. Could a show like MXC exist in a post-Jackass world? I mean, honestly, Wipeout was apparently super popular, and that's basically just a ripoff. And now apparently America is so desperate for Japanese game shows, we're just making American versions of Japanese game shows. So I say let's make MXC but for real right here in America. Heck, we can have it where the competition can go from convention to convention and we can film it all live. Then we can settle real debates, furries versus scalies, gamer boys versus gamer girls, Storytime animators versus NSFW animators. We could call it Conquerors. I'll work on that name. But yeah, I'd say if you haven't seen MXC, go watch it. It's a really funny show, and every season is on Amazon, even season 5, which never got a DVD release. Because overall, I'd say MXC is still well worth your time, and it is still funny all these years later. To see people get messed up is still funny, the commentary is still funny, and Kenny and Vic are still great hosts. I am the Watcher One, and I'm gonna start working on Conquerors. I wonder if Some Call Me Johnny would like to be our captain. I bet he'd be a great captain. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like the video if you did like it, obviously, and it also pushes the video through the algorithm, so there's a plus. And if you really liked it, then share it around. And if you really liked it, I do have a Patreon that you can support me with. That and all the other good links like Twitter and Twitch and all that stuff will be down below. And to everyone who's watching till the end of the video, I got a question for you all. Do you think a show like MXC, specifically a more comedic take on a physically challenging game show, could still work in a modern setting? If so, why, and what are some of the challenges you would like to see? Thank you all so much for checking this video out. I am the Watchful One saying keep on watching, and I'll see you guys next time.